Do you hear me now? Yeah. Okay, great. All right, what time is it? 11. Okay, good. So let me introduce the topic for today. We have many mitzvos in the Torah that are undefined. They're ambiguous. And we need the DeRabanan to interpret those mitzvos and define when they apply, when they don't apply. So, for example, the Torah commands us to re-experience Yetzias Mitzrayim on the night of Pesach. Chayav Adam liros es atzmo ki luhu yotza mi Mitzrayim. And that's a DeOraisa halacha that's derived from Zochas Hayom Asher Yitzasa mi Mitzrayim. How do we fulfill that? What should I be doing? You know, the Iraqis have a minhag that on the night of the Seder, they take a bowl of water, they put the matzah on their shoulder, and one after the other, they jump over the bowl of water. It's a nice idea. My son has another idea. He dresses up as Paro, and he has the Eser Makas, and he throws it out, and so forth and so on. But Chazal established exactly how to go about fulfilling that mitzvah. And they require that we eat beheseba. They require that we drink 4 cups of yayin. All these are takanos DeRabanan. But yet, and here's where the paradox comes, through that DeRabanan, we fulfill a mitzvah DeOraisa. How do we define it? Is it DeRabanan? Is it DeOraisa? We have different laws. We have rules that operate with regard to rabbinic law, for example, Safek DeRabanan L'Kula. We have different laws that operate with regard to DeOraisa to Torah law, Safek DeOraisa L'Chumra. Where do we place and where do we subsume a case where the Rabbanan are simply defining the method through which we fulfill a mitzvah DeOraisa? We have, for example, the mitzvah of V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. So again, I don't want to say anything that's not politically correct, but maybe, you know, if you're a Shlomo Kalbach type of guy, maybe V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha means that you should run around the streets and hug everybody and kiss everybody. And I have no problems with that. But the Rabbanan told us exactly how to fulfill V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. You know, you have a half a volume of Shulchan Aruch Yoredeya that tells you when to be Mavakar Chola, when and how to be Menachem Avelim, and when to be Machnes Sakala L'Chuppah, and so forth and so on. So the Rabbanan once again are defining the parameters of a DeOraisa. Do they always have authority to do so? And if having done so, are they now elevating their takana, their establishment, to a DeOraisa, to a level of DeOraisa? Now, this is all with regard to mitzvos. Let's flip it and talk about Isurim, about Lavin. Once again, we find a very strange phenomenon that sometimes the Lav of the Torah is undefined. We don't know exactly under what circumstances you violate the Lav, for example, of Lotasim Domim B'Veisecha. How tall is the ladder? How high is the roof? Etc., etc. We have a lack of clarity in a lav DeOraisa. So, for example, there's what's called a lav haba mechal essay of mora, of reverence for the parents. You have to have ish, imo, the aviv tiro. How do I go about avoiding any violation of mora, aviv, imo? My father tells me that you got accepted to Columbia University, you got accepted to Brooklyn College. He wants you to go to Columbia. You want to go to Brooklyn College. Is that a violation of the law of reverence to one's parents? I want to marry Rachel. My father wants me to marry Leah. What are the parameters of this law? In the case of a Takanas Chachamim, for example, Chametz B'Pesach, the Torah says you're not allowed to eat chametz from the 7th hour, which is 12 noon, on the 14th of Nisan, on Erev Pesach. The DeRabanan said you're not allowed to eat chametz from the beginning of the 7th hour. I'm sorry, from the beginning of the 6th hour. They pushed it up by 1 full hour, which means that midrabanan, if you eat chametz in the 6th hour on the 14th of Nisan, you violate what? You violated DeRabanan? Is there some new entity called chametz DeRabanan? For example, we're going to see that there are cases of Eishes Ish, where a woman is considered married only on a DeRabanan level. The Torah was not choshesh. The Torah did not consider her a married woman. And yet the DeRabanan said she's married. He went ahead. He's not married to her. He had a relationship with her. What did he violate? Did he violate an Isur DeRabanan? The Torah says, Lo tasur mikol asher yerucha. And you deviated from asher yerucha, from the Rabbanan, when they established this takana. Or is he in violation of Eishes Ish? And all these issues, and there are multiple issues, will come to the fore whenever the Torah is unclear and unspecified, undefined, and the Rabbanan step up, and through the authority of Lo Sasur, they tell you that in this case, you violated DeOraisa. They may make takanos, siagos, and they'll say to avoid this DeOraisa, you have to do the following. You have to stay away from X or Y. Does that make it into a DeOraisa? The Rabbanan have the authority to upgrade something to a level of DeOraisa.
How could you tell the difference?
And the first nafkamina is going to be analyzed by the Kovetz Shiurim. Now, just by way of introduction, the Kovetz Shiurim is a compilation and an anthology of insights of Rebbe Elchanan Wasserman, Zecher Tzadik v'Kadosh Livracha. It was authored by his students based on what they heard. It's a transmission of his chidushim, of his insights. But there's one section in this 2-volume work which was authored by Rebbe Elchanan himself. And that's called, I'll just show you what it looks like, Kuntris Divrei Sofer. I don't know if you could see that. And you might have, I think Bruce was kind enough to circulate a picture, a photograph. I'm not a very good photographer. We're going to have to, if we continue in this sugya, this is a brand new sugya for me, then we'll have to somehow, square the, figure out the technology here, because if you don't have access to the sefer, then, you're going to rely on my photography. That's not great. But I think it's legible, and if you press on it, you'll see it in an expanded form. So Rebbe Elchanan finds a fascinating Rambam in the 4th chapter of Hilchos Mamrim. Now, let me explain what that chapter is about. And if anybody has access, the Rambam wrote 14 volumes of the Mishnah Torah. This is the last of the 14. It's called the Book of Shoftim. I have a copy of it here if you're familiar with the Rambam La'am, which is a kind of a simple interpretation of the Rambam. He has the text of the Rambam on top with a very straightforward commentary on the bottom. It sort of reminds me of Kahati in Mishnayos. And in the last of the 14 books, if you can get access to it, the Rambam has a section called Hilchos Mamrim, which are the laws of the rebellious ones. Now, the first rebellious one is called a Ben Sorer Umoreh, a young lad, and Chazal will interpret it in very specific ways, who rebels against his parents. His parents warn him not to behave in a certain way. He steals from his father a certain amount of meat and a certain volume of wine, and he's a zolel v'sove. So that's one section in Hilchos Mamrim. There's another section in Hilchos Mamrim, which is called a zaken mamre. The word zaken doesn't indicate how much white hair he has, but rather a zaken is a chacham, a scholar. The Rambam is going to spend a lot of time defining the nature and the scope of his accomplished scholarship so that he is worthy of being a zaken mamre. A zaken mamre rebels against the High Court of Israel, which is, as you know, the Sanhedrin Agdolah made up of 71 elders. And he refuses to accept their ruling. Instead, he goes out and he himself violates their ruling. And the Rambam dedicates an entire chapter to this zaken mamre who has to be put to death by chenek, which is one of the four Mises Bezdin. He is subject to capital punishment as a zaken mamre. What are the laws, the requirements, the conditions to set him up as a zaken mamre? So the Rambam says something amazing, absolutely revolutionary, will knock your socks off, in Perek Daled Mihilchos Mamrim about a zaken mamre. And that Rambam is the kickoff to this whole discussion, this analysis in the sugya of Rabbi Chanan Wasserman, analyzing what is the status of a rabbinic institution when the Rabbanan expand the Torah, embellish the Torah, interpret the Torah, define the Torah. To what extent do they have authority to do so? And he finds the answer to this question in a Rambam. Could you imagine a Rambam in the 14th book of 14 books of the Mishnah Torah, tucked away in the 4th chapter of Hilchos Mamre? And Rabbi Chanan is convinced that this entire issue, which is going to be a life or death issue, in the case of zaken mamre, hinges upon this Rambam. So if I sound like I'm a little bit emotionally excited about it, you got it, my friends. I am very, very emotionally involved in this, because for years and years I've grappled with this issue about the relationship, almost the overlap. Sometimes it's very confusing. You don't know where the Torah ends and where the Rabbanan begins. And there's certain things that I would tell you, and you would tell me I'm absolutely wrong, and the truth is I'm right, but I'm only right on a DeOraisa level because we're so used to seeing the Torah law through the eyes of the Rabbanan that sometimes we lose the distance, the distinction between a DeOraisa and a DeRabanan. And we're going to see soon in the Rambam, in Hilchos Mamrim, that if you say about a DeOraisa that it's about a DeRabanan that it's DeOraisa, you violate an Isur Bal Tosef. Could you imagine that? You're confused. Let's say, for example, about Sfiras HaOmer in our time. The Rambam Shita, for example, is that the mitzvah of Sfiras HaOmer applies Bizman Hazeh. All the other Chachamim and Rishonim disagree with the Rambam, and Sfiras HaOmer only applies when they brought the Omer when the Mikdash stood. Today, Sfiras HaOmer is only DeRabanan. But the Rambam says that it's DeOraisa. So what would be if I paskin against the Rambam, like all the Rishonim unanimously, that Sfiras HaOmer today is only a rabbinic institution, and I get up when I'm ready to count the Omer and I say, Rabbosai, I clap on the tish and I make an announcement to my synagogue, Rabbosai, we are now about to fulfill a biblical command of Usfartem Lachem, B'yom Rishon, etc., etc. The Rambam would say, according, again, the Rambam happens to hold that Sfiras HaOmer Bisman says DeOraisa, but let's say if you paskin like the other Rishonim, the Rambam would say that that rabbi who gave a clap on the tish and he announced that we were about to fulfill a pasuk in Chumash, that rabbi violates an Iser DeOraisa of Baal Tosef. He has added a new mitzvah to the Torah. There are only 613. He added a 614th by declaring that Sfiras HaOmer today is a fulfillment of a DeOraisa. So obviously, the distinction, the categorization of a mitzvah as either DeOraisa or DeRabanan is very, very relevant to the violation of Baal Tosef. And that applies not only to mitzvahs, but even to Isurim. So if I were to declare that the Gzeira DeRabanan that prohibits me from eating chametz on Erev Pesach in the 6th hour, we'll call it 11 a.m., as opposed to the 7th hour, which is 12 p.m., if I would make a declaration and say that's an Iser DeOraisa, and the Torah prohibits me from eating chametz in the 6th hour, I have now violated Baal Tosef because it's the Rabban. And now we're going to study a Rambam which Rabbi Chanan thinks is absolutely revolutionary and is going to change our whole understanding of a Rabban. And just to give you the background, the chiyuv of Zaken Mamre applies, again, to a rebellious Zaken. He's on a very high level. He's roy, he's fit and suitable with his knowledge and his scholarship to sit on the highest court of Israel, on the Sanhedrin Agdol. That's the level of scholarship that he's achieved. And he disagrees with the rabbis. And he rules against them. Despite their decision and their ruling, they were what's called Omed Lebinyan. They had a vote. They declared that this is the halacha, and he goes back to his hometown, and he continues to rule according to his logic and his Kabbalah, what he received from his Rebbeim, and he contravenes the ruling of the Beis Din HaGadol Shebiyushalayim, the Sanhedrin of Ayin Aleph. Then he goes ahead and personally implements that ruling that he ruled against the Chacham. He's going to be put to death. So the Gemara establishes, and we'll see it now in the Rambam too, that when he disagreed with the Rabbanan, it wasn't about some sort of secondary issue. It was about a chiyuv kares. And the Rabbanan determined that under the following conditions, he'll be chayav kares. And the Zaken disagreed with the Chachamim, rebelled against their ruling, and decided that even if he did exactly what the Rabbanan classify as a chiyuv kares, he's allowed to do so. He's chayav as a Zaken Mamre. Again, under all the conditions, he's a Zaken royalist, Sanhedrin Agdola. He ruled against the Chachamim, refused to accept their decision, went ahead and paskin for others that they can violate this Iser Kares, and he himself violated this Iser Kares. All the pieces of the puzzle are there, and we put him to death with Edim and Asra, Ubiarta Arab Mikirbecha, with a Chiyuv Ched. Says the Rambam, the Sanhedrin Agdola decided that we are not permitted to eat chametz in the 6th hour. Now I ask you, if somebody eats chametz in the 6th hour, has he violated a chiyuv kares? Chas v'shalom. If somebody would tell me that if I eat chametz in the 6th hour, I'm chayav kares, that person violates Baal Tosef because he has confused the difference between a DeOraisa and a DeRabanan. And the Rambam says the Zaken Mamre is chayav because he argued against the Chachamim with regard vis-a-vis a chiyuv kares. Then and only then is he chayav as a Zaken Mamre. The Sanhedrin decided we're not allowed to eat chametz in the 6th hour. Is that a DeRabanan or a DeOraisa? Is that a Gzeira or an Iser Torah? Again, I don't know if you're on mute, but if you could unmute yourself so I know that you're with me on this.
Okay, the problem is I think it's deliberately mixed up. You ask an average person wouldn't know the difference on half
No, but
these
I'm
halachas.
asking you know the difference between a DeOraisa and DeRabanan, correct?
I don't know when it's the rice and when it's the
No,
Rabbanan.
again, trust me on this. It's only DeOraisa from the 7th hour. That's called Ach Ilek. It's a sugim psachim. We don't have to go through the details because it's not relevant to us. You'll have to accept my word that there's only an Iser Chametz DeOraisa from the beginning of the 7th hour. The Rabbanan made a harchaka, a siag, what's called a takanas chachamim. They said, we want you to stay away from chametz even in the 6th hour. Because in those days, they told, they were only able to tell time by the, what do they call it, the sundials and all that stuff. And you make a mistake on a cloudy day of 1 hour, maybe even 2 hours. And the Rabbanan therefore made a harchaka, and they told you to stay away from chametz in the 6th hour. Now, after the Rabbanan in the Sanhedrin Agdola took this vote, and they established a takanas chachamim with a gzeira DeRabanan, based on their authority of Lo Tasur Mikol Asher Yerucha, the highest court in Israel, they decided we are enjoined from eating chametz in the 6th hour. This Zdaken goes back to his town, his hometown, and he says, I don't accept this. I'm not going to buy into this takanas chachamim. The Torah says I can't eat chametz from the beginning of the 7th hour. He goes ahead and he rules against the Beis Din HaGadol, and then he goes ahead and he eats chametz in the 6th hour on Erev Pesach. Is he a Zaken Mamre? Has he ruled on something that's a Chiyuv Kares?
Yes.
What do you mean, yes?
Yes.
No, he's not.
Steve, are you ruining my whole shir?
No.
No. Is there a difference if he does it or if he teaches publicly better than
Both. He has both requirements. He's got to be a Zaken Mamre, he has to teach it publicly. He has to tell his people that I'm not accepting the ruling of the Sanhedrin Agdola 71. I rule that you're allowed to eat chametz in the 6th hour because that's what the Torah says. You're allowed to eat chametz in the 6th hour. The Sanhedrin says that you're not allowed to eat chametz in the 6th hour. They made a harchaka, they made a gzeira, siag. I don't buy into that. I'm as great as they are. And I'm going to rule for my people that they can eat chametz in the 6th hour. Then he goes ahead and he eats chametz. He demonstrates it.
Zaken Mamre is classified if he goes against what the Beis Din. Forget about what the halacha is. He went against the
Rambam says it doesn't matter if he goes against the Beis Din. If he goes against the Beis Din on a lav, a regular classical lav, he's not a Zaken Mamre. He's only a Zaken Mamre if he goes against Beis Din on a Chiyuv Kares. Eating in the 6th hour, my friend, is not a Chiyuv Kares. Eating in the 7th hour is a Chiyuv Kares. Chametz is a Chiyuv Kares, but not in the 6th hour. In the 6th hour, he's violating a DeRabanan, a Gzeira. And he goes ahead and rules and implements the ruling on the 6th hour, which is a DeRabanan. Clearly, he's not arguing about a Chiyuv Kares. He accepts the Torah law that if you eat chametz after the 6th hour, you'll be chayiv kares. He's not arguing about a chayiv kares. He's arguing about a takanas chachamim. He refuses to accept the takanas chachamim. He rebels against a rabbinic law, not against the chayiv kares. Even if he rebels against the chiyuv DeOraisa, but it's not kares, it's a regular lav. I don't want to go through the whole totem pole of different lavim. But on the lower end of the scale, we have Isur Lamim. He's not a Zaken Mamre. The Rambam says that the condition of a Zaken Mamre is that he rules to be lenient on a Chiyuv Kares. This is not a Chiyuv Kares. Nobody would argue that you're Chayiv Kares for violating Chametz in the 6th hour.
Does he suffer any consequence for his action, or is he completely off the hook?
You know what he does? You know what consequence he gets, Bruce? He gets put to death. Let's open up the Rambam. Perek Daled.
Pretty strict.
Okay, this is the punchline. That's why this Rambam is so mind-boggling that Rabbi Chanan writes a whole kuntris based on this Rambam. So I'm going to read to you the Rambam in Perek Dalid Mihilchas Mamrim. If you happen to have any volume, any edition of the Rambam, you'll see it inside. If not, you'll look in the page that we sent around.
Which is posted on the chat.
Posted on the chat. Thank you so much, Arthur. It's a great guy. Okay, I have to learn how to do these things. If I could only learn how to post things on chat, I don't know. You know, I went to graduate school, I went to undergraduate school, and the basic tools that I need in life, I don't have. You know, go figure that out. My parents paid thousands of dollars to teach me how to what do you call it, how to play a guitar. I used to, after 8 years of guitar, I knew how to play Spanish songs on the guitar. Today, give me a guitar, I don't know the difference between a G and an A. If I had 10% of the money my parents spent on this, I could have invested it here in Dagan, I would be a millionaire. Anyway, so let's read the Rambam here in the 4th chapter of Hilchos Mam. This Zaken, who rebelled against the High Court of Israel, and we're going to put him to death, is bedavar shechayovim al zdono kares. It's only because he's arguing and crossing swords against the Sanhedrin Agdola on something that generates kares if he did it b'mezid. And a chi of kares b'mezid, for those who know, it's not for us now, it's a whole discussion. If he did it b'shogeg, unintentionally, he's chayav a korban chatas. Says the Rambam, Bein shahayu osrim, hema osrim, vehu matir. This is the classical, simple, straightforward case of zaken mamre. You know, they said that you're not allowed to eat chametz and you get kares, and he says, no, you're allowed to eat chametz. Bain, here's the flip side. Hey matirim v'hu oser. They say you're allowed to do this, and he says, no, you'll get kares if you eat it. So once again, he's rebelling on something that involves a chiv kares. Hareza chayiv misa. And again, there's another part of this Rambam that requires, as I say, you know, we're overlapping many different sugyas here. The Rambam says, "Hafilu hu omer mipia Kabbalah," even though he says that this is what he got from his rabbis, and the Sanhedrin Agdol has a different Kabbalah. Nevertheless, he's chayav. He'll get punished and put to death with chen. V'chen, listen to this punchline. What I call, again, maybe because I never learned this sugya, a revolution of revolutions. He's arguing on Gzeira, on the DeRabanan. Haim gazru b'davar sheyesh bo kares. The Gzeira was made by the Chachamim to keep a person far away from violating a chiyuv kares. Kigon, shehiter hachametz biyom arbasa b'nisan b'shah shishis. He went ahead against the ruling of the Sanhedrin Agdola, and he told the people that they're allowed to eat chametz in the 6th hour. I'll skip the next few words because it's going to confuse us. I'll get back to it. Harei zeh chayav misa. What do you mean he's chayav misa? He rebels against the Chachamim about a takonas Chachamim, a gzeira that the Rabbanan instituted based on whatever authority they have as the Sanhedrin Agdola about chametz in the 6th hour. He didn't tell anyone to violate an Isa Kares. If he told them to eat chametz in the 7th hour, if he told them that, you know, on Pesach we're going to go out and have a chametz party, I understand he's a Zaken Mamre. But if he argues with the Rabbanan on the 6th hour, that's not a Chiyuv Kares. And the Rambam says we put him to death. Because somebody asked me before, why are we getting all excited about this? Is it a DeRaisa? Is it a DeRabanan? My nafkamina. It's all theoretical. It's all abstract. It's not abstract. It's relevant to life and death. We're going to put this guy to death because he told us that chametz DeRabanan is mutter. That chametz in the 6th hour you're allowed to eat.
Didn't he have to destroy the chametz in the 6th hour? So maybe if he's eating it instead, he's violating that.
But once again, Arthur, whatever you'll say, whether he's violating this or that, he's certainly not violating a chiyuv kares. Nor is he telling his people to violate a chiyuv kares. The Rambam says, "Hareza chayav misa v'chein kol chayotzim." So the first one to notice this Rambam was not Rabbi Chana in the 20th century. It was the Kesef Mishnah, Rabbi Yosef Karo. And as you know, the Kesef Mishnah wrote many different works. The Avkas Rochel, which is a collection of tshuvas. And of course, he authored the Shulchan Aruch. He also wrote a commentary on the Rambam. He wrote many works. This is the Kesef Mishnah, the same Rabbi Yosef Karo, who authored a commentary on the Rambam. Says the Kesef Mishnah, listen to this. A man took chametz and he gave it to a woman and he said to her, Harei at mekudeshesli. Anyone here from Brooklyn, New York, who remembers Chiffon Bakery? Chiffon Bakery. You remember that? I'm really dating myself. He took a beautiful piece of chametz, chametz gomer l'chol hadeis, and he gave it to a woman, and he said, "Arei mekudeshes." It's worth more than a pruta, correct? Kiddushin is not chal. Why? Because chametz is a chiyuv kares.
No, because you can't derive any pleasure from it from the 6th hour on. So therefore, it's.
Excellent. Says the Kesef Mishnah, this is what the Rambam had in mind. What the Rambam had in mind was that if he was matir something which the Rabbanan said is asur, then he's rebelling against the Chachamim about an Eishes Ish, which is the Chiyuv Kares. In other words, what the Kesef Mishnah is racking his brains to try to come up with a scenario in which the ruling of the Rambam is relevant to a DeOraisa, not just to a stam DeOraisa, but to a chiyuv kares. So if you happen to have, this page that is posted, and also you got it hopefully in your WhatsApp, I'm going to read to you the first paragraph. Chosav Rambam. Perik Dal Milchus Man. V'chenim cholak aleim b'gzeira min ha'gzeira shegozu b'davar sheyesh b'shigosu chatas donen kares kegon shehiter chametz b'yom yudal b'nisan b'shah shishis o she'asro ba'noah b'shah chamishes. Right, because the Rambam already established that chiyuv sakim marma goes in both directions. Either he's matir or something that the Rabbanan, that the Sanhedrin prohibited, or he prohibited that which the Rabbanan permitted. So the Rabbanan permitted Hana in the 5th hour, and he went ahead and said, no, you're not allowed to have Hana in the 5th hour. So since we're dealing with chametz, albeit the Rabbanan, but chametz is something that's chayiv kares, hareza chayiv misa, v'chein kol payotzu. Kosav al zeh b'kesef Mishnah, din zeh pashut. Yeah, of course it's pashut. You know why it's pashut? Because the Kesef Mishnah did acrobatics and circles in the air to come up with an nafkamina which is relevant to a chiyuv kares. How? Kevan shemakadesh chametz b'shei shalsel amala. If a person goes ahead from the 6th hour when the Sanhedrin Agdola established, based on their authority, that the chametz is asur ba'noah, and he went ahead and he gave her a beautiful piece of chametz in the 6th hour. Is ein choshishin l'kedushin. Why? Because once the Rabbanan established that you're not allowed to have hanah from it, it's worthless. It's not considered a shava pruta. So again, Rabbi say, I don't know you. Honestly, I'm being very honest. I don't know your level of learning. So I'm hoping that I'm not assuming too much. You'll have to teach me, if we continue our learning together, I have to get to know you on your level of learning. Does everybody here know what a shava pruta is all about in Kiddushin, or do I have to explain that? I don't know if you're all scholars, or you might know a lot more than I do. I don't know, or maybe you've never heard of it. So there's something called a shava pruta. A minimum object of value for kesef Kiddushin, to establish Kiddushin and Ishus, is got to be worth a pruta, which means that she receives something that is a hana that she could benefit from, at least the value of 1 pruta. Our minhag today is that you give her a ring that's worth $50. I don't know whatever it's worth, because we're not going to go into the shava pruta business. We don't want to start, he gave her a feather, he gave her a toothpick. We're not going to get into those issues. So we give her a ring. Shouldn't be too expensive, because then she might be fooled about what its true value is. But, you give her a gold ring that's worth, $50, and that's it. If it's not worth a pruta, she can't do anything with it. She has no way of benefiting and having hanah from it, then it's not Kiddushin, it's not valid. So the Rabbanan now established that in the 6th hour, you're not allowed to have any benefit from chametz, because they were marking you with this gzera 1 hour before the time that the Torah prohibited you. Now he gave her a loaf of bread, beautiful baked bread, from what's it called over here up the block, pat lechem, whatever it's called, and he gave it to her in the 6th hour. Is she married or not? She's not married. Why isn't she married? Because she has no hana in the 6th hour. She can't do anything with this chametz. Let her burn it. That's all she can do with it. Because the Rabbanan, the Sanhedrin Agdol, has determined that chametz midrabbanan is usher in the 6th hour. Once having done so, the chametz in the 6th hour is worthless, and therefore the kedusha that he gave is not chal. She's not an eishes ish. Comes along the Zaken Mamre, and he says, no, you're allowed to benefit from chametz in the 6th hour, and therefore chametz in the 6th hour becomes a shava pruta. And now a woman who's not married is considered married. Do you understand what's going on over here? The Kesef Mishnah is operating with the simple premise that there has to be some chiyuv kares over here. And the machlokas between the Sanhedrin and the Zaken Mamre is relevant to a chiyuv kares. So he does somersaults in the air and comes up with a mitzias, with a scenario in which this machlokas about chametz in the 6th hour is relevant to a chiyuv kares. How so? Because he gave a chametz in the 6th hour as marriage, and the Rabbanan would say that it's not marriage because it's asur b'hanah, and he's saying, no, I don't accept the chachamim, I rebel against them, and in my opinion, my ruling, this is mutar b'hanah. You can have benefits, you can eat it, and therefore it's a shava pruta, and therefore the kedushin is valid. So the nafkamina about this woman, whether she's married or not, that's an nafkamina of a chiyuv kares. Says Rabbi Chanan, I'm just anticipating the next paragraph. What would be, according to the Kesef Mishnah's understanding of the Rambam, if the Rabbanan determined that Orla, which means, the fruit of the tree in Israel for the first 3 years, we'll see about Orla and Chutzarts, it's a different concept, that Orla is asur b'hanah. You're not allowed to have hanah from it. Comes along the Zaken Mamre, and he says, no, you're allowed to have hanah from Orla. Is he chayav misa? Now keep in mind, Rabbi, if a person eats Orla, he does not violate a chiyuv kares. We'll give him 39 lashes, but he's not chayav kares. It's a regular law. Are you with me on this? So what's going to be, according to Kesef Mishnah, if the Zaken Mamre paskins that you're allowed to have hanah from Orla? Anybody?
was going to say it was a valid kedushin.
I'm asking you, what do we do with the Zakin Mamre? Is he chayav misa or he's not chayav misa?
No. No.
He's chayav misa.
No. Why?
Because a man went ahead and he gave Arla to a woman and he said, Arab Mikudeshesli beperos Arla elu. According to the Rabbanon, there's no Kedushin. It's Asur Bana. According to the Zakin Mamre, the Kedushin is valid. So this machlokas about Arla is relevant to whether or not this woman is married or not married, and that's a chiyuv kares, and therefore the Zakin Mamre is going to be put to death according to the Kesef Mishnah.
So you're putting somebody to death on basically a Rabbanan thing.
But why? Because it's relevant to a kares. Again, that's how the Kesef Mishnah works this out. How can you put a person to death?
The guy that got married with this worthless pair, according to Rabbanan, he's going to get kares, whatever, because he did something wrong on a Rabbanan level.
I lost you again. What the Rabbanan is saying is that she's not married. Why isn't she married? Because he gave her Arla, which is worthless. It's Asur Bano, it doesn't have a Shava Pruta. Comes along the Zakin Mamre, and he says, what the heck are you talking about? Arla is Mutar Bano. Are they arguing about a Chiyuv Kares? Comes along the Kesef Mishnah, and he says, yes. Again, the Kesef Mishnah doesn't address this question. Rebbe Chanan addresses this scenario. But what was the logic of the Kesef Mishnah? That in the case of Chametz, since if he would be Makadish and Ish in the 6th hour, there would be a machlokas between the elders and this particular Zakin about whether she's married or not. Therefore, he's a Zakin Mamre, he's Chayav Misa, because it's relevant, and the machlokas, the dispute, is about the DeOraisa and the Chiyuv Kares of an Eishes Ish. If that be the case, says Rabbi Chanan, the Kesef Mishnah would say the exact same thing about a machlokas about the nature of Arla if it's Asur Bana, because the man gave Arla to a woman. According to the Chachamim, there's no Kedushin. According to the elder, this rebellious Zakin Mamre, she is married. Why? Because there's no Isur Arla, no Isur Ana in Arla. It's a mathematical conclusion.
At the end of the day, the person getting married is going to get kares on a Rabbanan violation.
No. Again, we're not talking about a Rabbanan.
Arla,
the Isur Hano of Arla is DeOraisa, but it's only a Chiyuv Lav, it's not a Chiyuv Kares, correct? So we're not talking about some sort of rabbinic, rabbinic institution here. We're talking about a DeOraisa of whether Arla is Asur Bana, DeOraisa or not. Do you get Malchus? The Rabbanan said, and this was the decision of Sanhedrin Agdola, based on the fact that the Torah repeats the Isur Arla 3 times. I'm not going to go through that sugya. And the Rabbanan said that the Torah prohibits any benefit from Arla. What do we do with Arla? We burn it. You're not allowed to have any benefit whatsoever from Arla. And that's a DeOraisa Arla. It's a Chiyuv Malchus. If he has Hanoah from Arla, we're going to give Malchus. He's not Chayav Kares, it's only a Lav, but he's Chayav Malchus, it's a DeOraisa. Comes along the Zakin Mamre, and he says, no. Arla is Mutar Bana. So somebody gives Arla to a woman for Kedushin. According to the Rabbanan, she's not married because she didn't get a Shava Pruta. According to the Zakin Mamre, she is married because she has Hanoah from the Arla. She can sell it on the open market and make a fresh, deal. And according to Kesef Mishnah, therefore, this Zakin Mamre should be Chayav Misa. Says Rabbi Chanan, that's a mistake. That's absolutely not true. When the Rambam says that the Zakin Mamre who paskins that Chametz in the 6th hour, if the Zakin paskins that it's Mutar Bana, he's Chayav as a Zakin Mamre. The Rambam is talking about Chametz.
Wait a minute, with Arla, you're allowed to.
One last sentence, Arthur?
Sure.
Because Chametz is an Isur Kares. And the argument is about Chametz. That's why he's Chayav Misa. But not Arla. Arla is not a Chiyuv Kares. Yeah, Arthur?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Arla, even though everything it's usser, what is permissible is to, if you enjoy looking at Arla fruit, that's allowed. In other words, you put a bowl of.
That's called Tom. I'm missing one word here. I'll re'iyah tam v'reach ein bo mishum ano, whatever it's called. Anyway, yeah. But again, I'm talking now about eating the arla. I'm talking about burning the arla and making a fire to warm yourself.
No,
up.
but what I'm saying is, if there's a value to the woman for that, then a kedushin with arla would be allowed.
No, that we'll see in Rabbi Chanan as we go through this, that there has to be a bona fide Iser Hana in the Chayfetz. There's the legal parameters of an Iser Hana. The fact that she, thinks that this Arla is worth something to her, that's irrelevant. These are objective.
No, but the fact that it is because she enjoys looking at it.
Right, but again, Arthur, you have to wait for this.
She's getting Hana.
This is another part of the sugya that Iser Hana is defined legally. It's not a subjective matter.
Okay.
Again, the trouble is we have to know everything to know anything. I'm trying to, I'm trying to, what's the word? Navigate through this entire sugya. You can't know everything. But again, are you getting the point of Rabbi Chanan here? This is where
right. But Rabbi, in this case, the Zachin Mamre, he's the one that's elevating it to a kares. It's not the Rabbanan. If the Rabbanan are saying it's kares, I understand it. But if the Zachin Mamre is the one that's elevating it to being a situation where it would be kares, then it doesn't seem like that should apply.
That's not the logic of the Kesef Mishnah. The Kesef Mishnah is saying that if this machlokes could end up on a chiv kares, then he's a Zachin Mamre. We look at the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. You look at the end result. If he tells you that this is mutar b'ana, then he's saying that she's an Eishes Ish. The Rabbanan is saying it's aser b'ana. She's not an Eishes Ish. That's a machlokas on a chiv kares. So basically, the Kesef Mishnah is just calculating what are the long-term repercussions of their machlokas. If that be the case, says Rabbi Chanan, the same thing will apply in the case of Arla. Why? Because in Arla, the repercussions of the machlokas between the Beis Din HaGadol and the Zaken are relevant to marriage, whether she's married or not married. The Rabbanan are saying she's not married because it's aser b'ana, it has no value in objective terms. And the Zaken Mamre is saying, what are you talking about? Arla is mutar b'ana. And therefore she got to show the proof and she's married. So according to the Kesef Mishnah, we have to put this Zaken Mamre to death. Says Rabbi Chanan, that's not true. The Rambam is specifically focused on chametz. He's not dealing with Arla. There's a fundamental difference between chametz and Arla. Chametz is a chiyuv kares. The Zachin Mamre is arguing against the Chachamim about something, about an Isser, about an entity, a halachic entity of chametz, which generates kares. The Rambam didn't make a general, all-inclusive statement that any time that they argue about whether something is aser b'ana, it's mutar b'ana, we put the zaken to death. The Rambam specifically gave the example of chametz, and the Rambam explains why he chose chametz. The Rambam writes, because cholak aleim b'gzeira min ha'gzeiros shegazu b'davar sheyesh bizdono kares. That's not Arla. Arla is not a davar sheyesh bizdono kares. Let's say the Rabbanan made a gzeira about Arla, and they told you can't even, I don't know, whatever. You can't even go 4 amos within the parameters of the tree. The what do you call it? The radius of the tree, and he denies it. So you're going to put him to death? They're arguing about Xeris Chachamim on something which is not a chiyuv kares, because Arla is not a chiyuv kares. But the Kesef Mishnah would say that we put him to death as a Zachin Mamre. Why? He's only arguing about a DeRabanan. But the answer is because it has an afkamina in the case of Kiddush Isha. Would she be married? Would she not be married? So any time there's a machlokas between the Zaken and the Beis Din about something that ultimately, if we look down the line, could be relevant to Kiddushay Isha, then we have to put him to death. And as we say in Yiddish, das steht nicht in Rambam. The Rambam doesn't say such a thing. The Rambam says you put him to death because the argument is about Gzeira DeRabanan on something that is a chiyuv kares, meaning chametz, because chametz DeOraisa is a chiyuv kares. The Rabbanan made a Gzeira to keep you away from chametz, which is a DeOraisa and a chiyuv kares. Therefore, the elder is arguing and rebelling against them about a chiyuv kares, because when the Rabbanan make a Gzeira, that makes it into a chiyuv kares.
That my question is the 6th hour.
You with me? I mean, this is so radical. That's why I told Bruce the other day that this is a new sugya for me. I'm telling
The 6th hour has the same status as the 7th hour?
only on a DeRabanan level.
That means that your chayav karet on both the 6th and the 7th. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. You
It
see,
turns out
that far I can't go.
but you're going that way because you're putting the
Rebbe
couple
Chanan
getting-
seems to be taking us in that direction, but
because
it's
the
impossible
couple
You know,
getting married.
I admit to you, Rebbe Chanan is very, very radical here, very revolutionary, and he's arguing
Listen,
against the Kesef
couple
Mishnah, which
get-
is
the
not a
couple
simple
getting
matter.
married.
But I don't know if he's willing to say that if you eat chametz or benefit from chametz in the 6th hour, you have karetz. I don't think Rebbe Chanan would go that far. In the
But the
worst
people
case
getting
scenario, if
married
you
are-
have
are
hanoah
gonna
for
be chayav
chametz in the
karetz.
6th hour, you have violated Gzeira DeRabanan. What he's saying though is that the Zaken Mamre, who decides that chametz is mutter in the 6th hour, he is chayav karetz, so to speak. I mean, he's chayav misa. But what I mean to say is chayav karetz, that was a plitas peh. I'm sorry. What I meant to say was that he's arguing about a chiyuv karetz. What do you mean he's arguing about a chiyuv karetz? He's only arguing about the 6th hour. The 6th hour is not a chiyuv karetz. But since the Rabbanan made that siyag in the 6th hour in order to protect us from a chiyuv karetz, from eating chametz in the 7th hour, therefore, he is considered as if he's cholek on the Bezdin HaGadol on something that's chayav karetz, because he's arguing about chametz. He's only arguing about the 6th hour, which is only Gzeira DeRabanan. Name. Because the Gzeira DeRabanan was our chaka to keep you away from chametz, and chametz is an Eastern curse. You see the Chadgadia here. This is like a domino theory. You start with chametz DeOraisa, which is a chiyuv kares. Then you go on to Gzeira DeRabanan, and then the Zaken Mamre who argues about the Gzeira DeRabanan. It's as if he argued about chametz DeOraisa. And in front of my eyes, what I see here is like an integration, almost a blurring, an ambiguity in the distinction between the DeOraisa and the DeRabanan.
That's my
Which, as we
problem.
said before, it's a violation of Maltosin.
The couple getting married are going to be put the kares on a Rabbanon thing.
I don't think you can make the comparison between Erla and Chametz, because Erla inside the Eretz Yisrael is usher, but in Syria or Chutz La'aretz, it's a suffix.
No, I wouldn't say it's a suffix. It's called halacha l'Moshe B'Sina. But wait a minute. Let's again. What I wanted, we have to end the shia now. I'm because I have to go downstairs. You know, I'm on my way to Morocco now. So I just want to say the following. I would derive great pleasure if you told me that you understood the implications of the Kesef Mishnah on a matter of life and death, which is Rabbi Chanan's Chiddush. It would be great. It would give me great pleasure. Rabbi Chanan is saying that according to the Kesef Mishnah, we're not talking about chametz per se. We're talking about any machlokas about an Iser Hana. It could be Allah. I could give you 50 other examples. It's not chametz. The implication of the Kesef Mishnah's understanding of the Rambam is that whenever there's a machlokas between the Bezdin HaGadol and the Zaken Mamre about an Iser Hana, he's going to be put to death. Why? Because now there's going to be an implication with regard to marriage. And marriage is a chiyuv misa, a chiyuv kares. So they're arguing about a chiyuv kares. And Rabbi Chanan refuses to accept it. He completely rejects it. The Rambam is talking about chametz. Why? Because chametz is a chiyuv kares. He's not talking about arla. Arla is a chiyuv lav, but it's not a chiyuv kares. If you understood that point, zes chari mikol amoli, then it was worth giving the whole shir.
I still have a question. One question. Why are
Okay,
you
one
putting
last
the-
question, and then we have to go because
I still don't understand why the couple getting married. Why are they chayiv kores? Why is the kedusha they chayiv kores? If it was only that they violated a rabbanan takana of the 6th hour, that I don't understand. Why is it the chayiv kores?
one second. Again, according to the Rabbanan, if a man would have a relationship with this woman, scot-free. According to the elder, if he has a relationship with this woman, we put him to death. He's chayiv kares. Why? Because the machlokes between the elders and this zaken about chametz in the 6th hour will be relevant to a case where in the 6th hour, Reuven gave a loaf of bread to Rachel. According to the Rabbanon, she's not married. According to the elder, she is married. Why? Because there's no Easter in the 6th hour. He refuses to accept the Gzera of the Bezdin. So since there'll be a relevance to whether or not woman is married, therefore there's a machlokes here on an Easter kares. Hence, the elder, is chayiv misa. That's the kesef mishnah. And Rabbi Chanan points out that oy bazoi, if the kesef mishnah is correct, that has implications for any Easter hana. It's not limited to chametz. It's not a special, exceptional case in chametz. Any Easter hana that they argue about. If, let's say, for example, okay, this is a Birchas Yosef Siddur, holy Siddur for Moroccans, right? If you and I would have a machlokas about whether or not I can have hana, I'm an Ashkenazi, can I have hana from this Siddur, then that would be a machlokas about a chiyuv kares, because if somebody gives this Siddur to a woman for Kedushin, we're going to have two opinions as to whether she's married. Okay, Rabbi, so we're going to have to stop here. I want to thank everyone for joining me and wish everyone a great day.
Thank you very much.
And
You're
thank you.
going to have the same topic next week?
It's up to you. If you could ask around, I mean, this is a topic that could take us months to
It's a
work
great
through.
topic.
And it's beautiful. I mean, I didn't even scratch the surface yet. I'm so overwhelmed by this. So you let me know.